Hey guys, my name's Tim Cooley. I really want to help you get the best 10-minute pitch deck for investors created. So I put together this video to help you with that. Now, I want you to keep in mind, there's a lot more to presenting than just slides, but slides can get you pretty close. So if you need more help, please reach out. So with that, let's get started. So there's a couple things that I want you to keep in mind. First, investors want to put money into your business. Now, I don't know what your background is, but many people don't believe that's true, right? The fact of the matter is that investors want to put money into your business so that it makes them more money, and they're not working for it, right? If we talk about passive income, so they want to. So the whole time that you're presenting, you're only giving them reasons not to say yes. So keep that in mind. They want to say yes. That's why they're there. That's why they're listening to you. So you're already starting off on a positive note. So keep that going, right? Secondly, investors are very smart. You have no idea what they know. You don't know what their hobbies are. You don't know what their interests are. You don't know who they talk to that week. So give them that respect that they might know more than you do about a certain industry or a certain topic. I see this a lot where people might argue in the room, and that is not a good situation. Just give them the benefit of the doubt, and if the conversation comes up later, have that conversation. It's always a good thing. So, thirdly, keep your pitch high level. You've only got 10 minutes, right? So, don't focus on the technical jargon and the minutia details. Just keep it high level. If you're doing something scientific or something that's got research, we're just going to have to believe you, right? We'll do due diligence later and we'll figure all that other stuff out. But for right now, just keep it high level. Your goal is to get the investors and the people in the room to ask you questions. So if someone does have background in that space, then they'll ask you a very detailed question about it, and that is a great opportunity for you to go into detail. But otherwise, just don't do it. Keep it high level. So, um, don't memorize your presentation, right? This is a conversation. You're talking to people in a room about your idea. If somebody can't interrupt you in the middle of your thing without you getting all frazzled, work on that. Practice more. You shouldn't need note cards. If there's something that's more technical or you need numbers or something, just add it to your slides, but put it in the appendix. So if somebody asks you about it, you can reference those numbers and things. But don't use note cards. Again, remember they want to say yes to you, and by giving note cards and memorizing your presentation, you're basically not building confidence with the people in the room. You can do it, but I recommend just practice a lot. I mean, this is your business. You should just know it. Don't do animations unless you are incredibly skilled at presenting. Animations are not only distracting, but they break the flow and timing of stuff. It does not. I haven't seen very many cases where hiding a figure and then revealing it later adds that much value to the presentation. Um, uh, so I would just avoid it. Just show the whole screen. They're going to listen to you anyways. Give them the details. It's not like you're hiding anything. Again, unless you're really good and understand how to build suspense, most people don't have that skill. So I would just avoid animations completely. And then your pitch should flow like a story, right? That's what I'm here to show you. It should flow from one slide to the next to the next. And I'm going to give you a way of doing that over the next little bit here. So that's what this whole video is about, is how to make our pitches sound more like stories. So let's get started with that. So some investor groups like an overview slide. I recommend it. It really sets the stage for what you're doing. You don't want to spend more than maybe 15 to 30 seconds on this slide, but you're kind of setting the stage. Give the investors an idea of what you're doing, how much money you're asking for, what the team might look like, and the use of funds. You don't even need to talk about these things. You just need to show them, right? You're really just like, you're just serving up the volleyball or whatever. You're just giving it to them so that they can start to process where we're about to go. And so once you've set the stage, they're going to start asking this question, right? They're going to say, oh, show me what you're doing. Well, and you'll see here on our slides at the very top, it says, I'm glad you asked. This is our response to this imaginary question that investors or the people in the room are asking you as you're developing your slides. This helps us build our story. So, what is it that you're doing, right? Based off of our first slide. I'm glad you asked. Well, let me tell you about this. So here's this problem in the world, right? Using graphs and charts and data and news articles and things like that, all you want to do on this slide is convey the problem that you're about to solve, that you're going to show us that you're solving. There's many ways of doing this. Charts are good. Another really good way, and I highly recommend this, is if somebody on your team found this problem somehow. So, for example, let's say I worked at Adobe for 40 years and I noticed that they weren't doing something, but there was this huge problem in the world based off the data, and now I'm solving it. That builds not only credibility, but it builds like this deep understanding of the problem that not many people have. So that's a really good thing to do in this problem thing, right? So again, you're starting to tell the story, and the story starts with the problem. So the investors and the people in the room are thinking, okay, cool, I see your problem. I see how big it is and what's going on. And the question is, cool, neat. How do you solve that? Well, I'm glad you asked, right? So here's our solution. Um, Show it. Show the solution, no matter how you can do it. If it's wireframes, mock-ups, click-throughs on an application, physical products, bring it in, show it off. Uh, there's many ways of doing this, but one way I don't recommend is through video. Unless your video is short and it drastically demonstrates the solution to the problem that you talked about before, um, I wouldn't use it. I have seen video work really, really well in many cases, but many times I've seen it break the flow of the presentation as well as go on for too long. I mean, you've only got 10 minutes, so if you're spending 3 minutes in a video, you're wasting time, right? You're wasting valuable, precious time when you could just walk somebody through the presentation. If you have to do an application where there's a login and things like that, already log in. Come with the application up and running with those few feature sets that are important and reflect the problem that you're solving. Remember that, and this happens a lot, make sure that the solution solves the problem that you just talked about, right? So let's say we're building an application and it does something, but the problem we talked about was hunger in the US. If those two don't directly correlate, that doesn't make sense and you've lost me, right? How does an app solve hunger? You got to make more food to solve hunger, right? So make sure that the problem directly solves, or I mean, the solution directly solves the problem that you're going after. So we've talked about the problem. We've demonstrated how our solution solves that problem. And then the investors and the people in the room are like, cool, well, how do you get paid? Sweet, I'm glad you asked. Be very specific here. Show me how you get paid. Just talk about the numbers. I sell my product for $50. It costs $20. Or here's my annual fee for this application or whatever. Just show that number. Add any details you need to it. Keep it very simple. If you're doing something with ads, don't just write ad revenue, right? Like, we're going to do banner ads that cost about this much. And, we're going to get it through views or whatever. Like, be very intentional about how you're going to make money. If you have a complex business model where you maybe have 50 different revenue streams, or they can piecemeal some of these revenues together, pick a couple of them, pick 2 or 3, and just focus on those and build the whole pitch deck around those 2 or 3 services, because you want to keep this simple, right? The more complicated you get, the more reasons you're having investors say, I'm not interested. And that's what you want to avoid. So now we know how you make money. So what does this look like in the next 5 years based off of these numbers? Well, sweet. I'm glad you asked. You can show your chart, goes up and to the right. And it's always good to show numbers, right? So most investors have a background in math because it's once you get in a certain level of business, it's all numbers. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your numbers, we all know. You know, I know. Everybody knows that these numbers are wrong. As soon as you put them on the paper, they're wrong. But what we're looking for here is to see how you think, right? If your numbers go crazy, you need to be able to justify, okay, well, how did you go from 60 million to 400 million in year 4? Like, what happened in that phase that made that even possible? Sometimes people will put way too big. Well, how did you go from 250K to 3 million in year 2? That seems like a ridiculous amount of growth. If you can explain why those numbers and why those jumps, that's great. Those are perfect, and that's what you want a slide like this to show. Like, you just want to show that you're able to think and think long term. So again, how did you get these numbers, right? So this is where we start talking about the market opportunity. And so what you want to do is show, so this is TAM is a total addressable market. If everybody in the world who could use your thing used it, how big would that market be? Serviceable addressable market is the niche or the group of people you're going after first. Like the biggest group. So if there's, let's say you're going after mid-sized businesses. Well, this is all of the mid-sized businesses that could use your product. The first one we showed all the businesses if they could use it. This one might be the mid-sized businesses. And then your SOM is serviceable addressable market. This is the group of people you're going after first. So when we spend money on ads or calling people, we're going after this group of people. And this is what we're trying to tackle in our first 5 years. And so you notice that the SOM is actually reflective of your 5-year projections. So if you're doing, if the SOM is 60 million and your 5-year projections show you're doing 125 million, that just mathematically is broken and doesn't make much sense. So these two slides are very much connected. You shouldn't be getting to your 60 million. You should be trying to take out that 1 to 2% of the market over that period of time. But you can see how these two slides are completely related to one another. So we've already told the investors like what our problem is, how we plan to solve that problem, how we're going to make the money. And now they're asking themselves, okay, sweet. Well, you know, this industry does seem pretty big, but if it's that big and it's such a great idea, you know, like who else is doing it? Well, I'm glad you asked. So there's many ways of putting together a competition slide. I really, 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 really recommend doing a check system. A lot of people don't like it as far as entrepreneurs go, but you're trying to convey message simply, right? And what you want to do in these slides is, again, show your direct competition, but also show people who might be able to compete, right? So if they were to enter your space, could they compete with you, even if they have no intentions of doing that? This is a good thing to do also because it also sets the stage later to talk about the opportunity of acquisition if that's your end goal. Also, make sure if you're doing a checkbox system that the features that you're talking about are related to the problems and the solution that you mentioned earlier. If you start adding extra features in this slide, it gets confusing. You're like, wait, where did this come from? You never mentioned it before. So don't add anything here. Just reiterate the things you talked about before. Another way of doing this is through a scatter plot. It does work sometimes. I just think a checkbox system works a little bit better. So again, we've walked our investors and the people in the presentation through our product, through the problem, through the solution, how we're going to make money, the competition. So how did you get to these numbers? Like what does this look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is your opportunity to show your traction, the things you've done so far. This is probably one of the most important slides. As we all know, as we're raising early capital, people want to see how much you've done. So patents, team building, customer acquisition, all of these things. Did you release your beta? Where are you at in the process? And all of these timeline ideas are high-level milestones. So if you brought on a CTO or if you launched that beta, put those on here because they're really, really important to building credibility, but also to be building traction. So what's next, right? That's what the investors are thinking. Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's where we're going. So over the next 6 months to a year, these are the things that we'll be accomplishing in and around this time frame. Usually, there's two schools of thought here. One is to do it if you were never to raise capital, what would you be accomplishing? Or if the money that was granted would accomplish this. You can go either way. It's up to you to decide which one works best for you in the story that you're trying to tell. So we've walked the investors through our problem, our solution, how we're going to make a bunch of money, what we've done so far. And so the question is who's going to make all this happen? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is your team slide. And I mentioned before, if the story works really, really well, introduce the key player that came up with the problem early on. But come back to this. Talk about that team. And what you want to do is talk about how each of these team players are important to this business. I've seen this happen many, many times. It's great that you brought on a person with experience in manufacturing, but if you're building a tech company, how do those two things help build credibility that you're going to be the ones who are going to launch this business? So just make sure you talk about how this person's credible to this venture. The other thing to do is to mention your advisors. Don't spend time here. 4 or 5 seconds. You don't even have to mention them. You can just say we have a pretty solid advisory panel with experience in X, Y, and Z. Unless you have a rock star stud on your advisory panel, it's really not that important to put time into talking about them. So again, we've walked the investors through our problem, our solution. They're on board. They're like, okay, this makes sense. I see the market opportunity. Your team sounds awesome. I really believe that you guys are capable of bringing this product to market. So what's the opportunity? How do I get my money back? Well, I'm glad you asked, right? So you want to show, right? An investor's looking for a 10x return on their money. So show them all the companies who are buying similar companies to yours. Maybe other companies like you mentioned as your in your competition, maybe they might be the ones that are buying you. So just keep this a little high level. You just want to show that there's opportunity for that investor to get their money back. And so now they're thinking, okay, cool. I see the opportunity. I see how I can make money. What do you need to make all this happen? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's the amount of money we're looking for. Go into detail here. What are you asking for? Are you looking for debt, equity, a safe note? Maybe you're not sure. Maybe it's open for negotiation. Write it down. Let the investors know. Don't let them guess. You're not hiding any information anyways, so just let them know on a slide like this, right? Also, let them know what you're going to use the funds for. Typically, these do tie back to that timeline slide. So with a $400,000 investment, we're going to do these 5 things. The first thing is going to happen in 6 months. The second thing is going to happen in month 8, whatever the strategy is. A really nice thing to do is a pie chart. It really helps just clean up the slides. And then, yeah, so yeah, just you're tying it all together. And again, you've already shown them this information if you did that that introductory slide. So you're just kind of reminding them about what it is that you're asking for. There are many, many ways of putting slides together. There's a lot more information than just what I've given you in creating slides. The words you use, the tone you use, the way you say things. If you need help like that, please reach out to me. Go to my website. You can download these slides for free if you want the template. I'm really happy to share with you my strategy on putting together a 10-minute slide deck. And I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to working with you. Thanks. Bye.